The Psychedelic Renaissance, seen from a consciousness perspective. Experiential intensity versus peak experiences. Hello, my name is Andre and I'm a psychotherapist operating out of Copenhagen, and I moonlight as a spiritual teacher. This YouTube channel operates from the main insight that appearance is not the same as essence. When we make a demarcation line between everything that belongs to the appearance, physical, emotions, thoughts, and even the entire personality, and afterwards I disidentify from all that, it becomes possible to move one's core identification from the appearance and into essence, from the objective to the subjective. Today we follow up on last week's video and take one step further, because last week we looked at addiction as a failed attempt at getting from appearance to essence, and today we will, in light of newer recent developments and in science, among others, look at what has been coined the renaissance of psychedelic drugs, and we will examine if they help us in our getting from appearance to the essence. I write from the context of a person that has tried and have experience with psychedelic and empathogenic drugs. I have first-hand experience with them, and I have had a plethora of different experiences. I don't take them anymore and never will again. So with that being said, let's get into it. 1. Psychedelic suppression and reflowering. What we normally call psychedelic drugs consist of a long line of different drugs which are made from organic material or artificial chemicals. Let's start by getting an overview. So what we normally call psychedelic drugs, we can divide into 3 classes of psychedelic substances: the tryptamines, the phenethylamines, and the ergolines. In the class of tryptamines, we find drugs such as psilocybin mushrooms and DMT. And in the phenethylamines, we find mescaline-containing cacti and the entire 2C family, which consists of 2CB, 2CE, etc. In the ergolines, we find LSD and its closely related cousin, LSA, which can be found in the Hawaiian baby wood rose seeds. Furthermore, in recent times there have been produced a lot of different derivatives of these classic psychedelic substances, and that happens because the molecular chemists, they keep on tweaking the classical psychedelic molecules, and when they tweak them a little bit, they create new compounds within the same old family structure. And if you want to take a deep dive into that whole world, I can recommend Anne and Alexander Shulgin's 2 books, PIHKAL and TIHKAL, and for more information, look in the description below this video. Furthermore, there is a 4th class of drugs which we can call empathogens, and this class includes drugs such as MDMA, which was in the olden days called ecstasy, but has nothing to do with spiritual ecstasy, and MDA. These drugs are not classical psychedelic compounds. Instead of opening up all the energy centers, they work mainly on the heart energy center and have the added benefit of making communication in intimate relationships easier. Pretty much all the psychedelic drugs listed are illegal within the Danish law, and there's therefore some risk involved in dealing with them. Based on that context alone, I cannot recommend anyone to take either tryptamines, phenethylamines, ergolines, or empathogens. The consumption of psychedelic drugs has historically been prevalent in pre-personal tribal societies. Knowledge about safe use, handling of these drugs has been relegated to the shaman of the tribe, which had through a teacher-student context initiated new students into the shamanist world and secured the know-how through the generations. Shamanism belongs to the pre-personal instinctive cultures, but has been tried to be resurrected in a neo-shamanist version by postmodern humans and in the New Age culture. This YouTube channel is not a neo-shamanist or a New Age channel, because we are not going back to the instinctive domain. And if you want more about that, also check out my next video, which is about being careful about watching childhood through rose-tinted glasses. Neo-shamanist New Age belief system rejects the appearance civilizational development as it has actually developed. Instead, they prefer to seek into an instinctive and lower astral world, where you are always free to act on any impulse, free sex and free drugs and all that. The American writer Terence Mckenna was one of the most well-known proponents for this New Age philosophy. And his book in Fruits of the God is built up as one big fall of man from the pre-personal instinctive state, which in Terence McKenna's view is thought of as paradise, to the modern objective appearance world hell. And I will get back to Terence McKenna in a later video. There is no freedom in desire. Real freedom begins when you let go of the identification with one's appearance and starts the journey into essence. We are thereby traveling from the unconscious instinctive to the semi-conscious appearance and into the conscious essence. So there is a real work for all spiritual aspirants to be able to demarcate between appearance and essence when standing in front of a spiritual object, which could be a book, a movie, a person, or a teaching, etc. That can be hard work and difficult because appearance is not the same as essence. In other words, in the first place, you are drawn to the spiritual because you're tired of living in the appearance and wants to transcend it and longing to come home. That longing can quickly become it can quickly turn into a fall in consciousness down to the instinctive domain instead. This channel is, among others, created in order to help avoid these postmodern spiritual traps. Forwards, not back. With the discovery and manufacturing of cheap LSD, this powerful psychedelic substance was, from the late 1960s and forwards, all of a sudden available for the population in general. And that was without any forms of initiation, know-how, or regulation of its use. At the same time, a huge illicit drug market, which made a lot of money. There was no control with the production of the drugs, and many cheap alternative was sold as being pure LSD. What could possibly go wrong? With the rise of youth culture, Western societies was confronted with the very real danger of collapse from the objective domain down into the instinctive domain. With knowledge about the societal effects and consequences of the collapse of state and the following possibility for civil war, the governments responded by systematically starting to criminalize these substances in an attempt to spread to stop its spread. Thereby, the psychedelic substance went underground for several decades, and meanwhile, society reassembled itself after the laws and rules of the appearance. And by the way, I will return to why the appearance is objective in a later video. For the last 20 to 30 years, psychedelic substances has, within the science and therapy world, had an reflowering. Slowly, more and more studies of psychedelic drugs' influence on brain activity has arisen, and the like. MAPS has the NGO MAPS has in the USA lobbied to have a legalization of MDMA in use to what they call psychedelic assisted therapy. With the psychedelic history behind us, we will now in section 2 of this video examine what subjectively happens when you ingest a psychedelic substance, because experiential intensity is not the same as peak experiences. 2. Experiential intensity versus peak experiences. So what actually happens when you ingest a psychedelic substance? All the psychedelic substances maximize the intensity of one's subjective experience. This could mean that the world all of a sudden looks more intense. The colors can sort of jump out at you. Music can sound more intense and three-dimensional. Visuals can arrive, which for instance can look like fractals, which are spinning around on the white wall, and the like. One's sense of self will be transformed. It can become more porous. It can feel like you're melting into the environment. By the peak of experience, you can have out-of-body experiences and visit astral worlds. In other words, psychedelic substances increases one's ability to experience the universe. It increases one's ability to experience the world, which normally has been covered by the unconscious karmic patterns of the appearance. But psychedelic substances only very, very rarely provides peak experiences, which on Shulgin's scale is a +5. So psychedelic substances increases the intensity of one's experience, but it does not necessarily help one get into another paradigm. It does not necessarily help one get into a greater context. We see a lot of human beings have these powerful experiential intensity experiences, and then they come back from it and declare that now they're enlightened and all kinds of crazy and funny stuff. It can be that they put on some spiritual clothes. It can be that they surround themselves with spiritual iconography. It can be that they talk with a soft voice and say all the right words. But appearance is not the same as essence. There is no shortcut to essence. It's not possible to build lasting change on top of powerful intensity experiences. So the difference between a powerful psychedelic experience and a peak experience is that in a powerful psychedelic experience, you experience your paradigm in its furthest energy manifestation at its maximum energy capacity, whereby you in a peak experience break through temporarily into another paradigm, into a greater context. Let's try to examine this demarcation line a little closer by examining a case study on the movie Avatar, the movie series Avatar. Case study: Avatar 1 and Avatar 2, The Way of Water. Two of the highest grossing movies in film history is Avatar 1, released in 2009, and its sequel, Avatar 2: The Way of Water, released in 2022. In the first Avatar movie, we meet the exhausted marine soldier Jack Sully sometime in the future. He's being sent on a mission to a strange and distant planet, Pandora, which harbors its own ecosystem and original tribe. In order for Jack Sully to immerse and integrate himself on the planet, an avatar is grown for him. And an avatar is a blue original tribesman, giant alien, which his human consciousness can associate itself with. His mission is to examine the planet and its inhabitants in order for the humans to later be able to colonize and effectively fight off the resistance of the inhabitants of the planet. Even though Jack Sully's mission does not have integrity in and of itself, meaning what he says is not the same as what he does, he has to remain in a neutral stance toward the planet in order to in order to examine it and getting to know it. Jack Sully acts at the same time as a replacement holder for the audience, and we as the audience are thereby, through Jack Sully's neutral examination, brought into this fantastical and strange world. The deeper he immerses himself in the world, the more a willingness to become a part of the planet and its inhabitant arises. He ends up letting go of his original mission and become a part of the Na'vi tribe, which is a tribe that lives in the forest of Pandora. And yes, there is the postmodern narrative about the fall from the instinctive domain as somehow being better than the objective domain under the movie. But the movie is shown from Jack Sully's perspective and does not completely fall into the same trap as Terence McKenna did. So the first Avatar movie is therefore in its essence somewhere between neutrality and willingness. Neutrality to examine the world from a neutral perspective, and then a willingness to engage in life. If you are in your own life have not yet reached neutrality or willingness, you can, by watching the first Avatar movie, get a peak experience. By melting together with Jack Sully's journey, you can temporarily transcend your own paradigm and sort of on your own go and experience Pandora. At the same time, the movie is filled up with beautiful animation and music, which in a very convincing way creates a new world for the audience. This means that apart from getting a peak experience, you also get the peak experience with a strong experiential intensity as only Hollywood can deliver. And now we'll go on to the sequel, which was called Avatar 2: The Way of Water. In Avatar 2: The Way of Water, we once again meet Jack Sully, but now a couple of decades has passed, and he has on a permanent basis moved his body into his avatar body, and he has created a new Na'vi family on the planet Pandora. When humanity once again tries to colonize the planet in order to extract its resources, it now turns into a turf war or a territorial dispute, where it's about the fight between Jack Sully and his tribesmen on the one side, and then humanity on the other side, which fights for control over the planet and its resources. From Avatar 1 to Avatar 2, we have reduced the relative expansive context from the first one, which was about the neutral discovery of a strange world and the willingness to engage in it, to a context which is about the fight for control of the planet and its resources. Yes, okay, there are elements of finding the courage to protect what you love, but Avatar 2: The Way of Water rests in the pride paradigm and the turf war mentality. Avatar 2, The Way of Water, is even more experientially intense than Avatar 1 was. Hollywood has, in those 13 years which it took between the first movie and the second movie, become better at increasing the intensity. Thereby, when watching Avatar 2, you get more bang for your buck than in the first one, but you get the more bang for your buck in a narrower context. Those people that got a peak experience from watching Avatar 2 will not in the same way have a peak experience out of their everyday paradigm, because the context for the peak experience has been greatly reduced. All real art has as its main objective an intention of lifting the audience temporarily into a greater context. The Avatar film series has therefore fallen into the bigger and better trap for sequels. Avatar 2, The Way of Water, offers a greater experiential experience than Avatar 1, but has at the same time lost its ability to give the average audience a peak experience. In the same way, the psychedelic substances offers more and more intense experiential experiences by upping the dose, by upping the greater and greater dose, but without lifting the user out of his paradigm, out of his resting context. And for the last time today, we will return to Terence Mckenna, because one of his main points was that before he tried the very powerful psychedelic substance called DMT for the first time, he had the expectation that the experience would give him a feeling of melting together with the divine. But when he finally tried it, instead what happened was that a lower astral world of, quote, self-transforming machine elves arose for him. He had been shot into his nearest astral world in his existing paradigm, instead of being lifted up into a greater context. Psychedelic substances are more like Avatar 2, The Way of Water, than they are like Avatar 1. Psychedelic substances is a critical point where you can go wrong in your sadhana, precisely because psychedelic substances offer so powerful experiences that you can become fascinated and hypnotized by it. But appearance is not the same as essence. 3. We are not our experiences. We are not our experiences. No matter how powerful psychedelic experiences we have had, they don't help us in our sadhana. A lot of people take psychedelic substances with the hope of getting mystical peak experiences. I'm doing the dishes on a January afternoon. A soft light is streaming into the kitchen, and then all of a sudden there's a presence in the room. The presence is a combination of the father's still consciousness and the mother's power, light and ananda. I'm not identified with the experience, so I let it pass through me with gratitude, and then a new experience arises tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. In this non-linear, unconditional love field, the miraculous becomes the normal. If you experience one miracle in your life, for instance, the birth of a child, you always treasure it and carry it with you for the rest of your life. If you experience 2 to 3 miracles a week, it becomes normal, everyday stuff. Powerful experiences can uplift us, inspire us, and enliven us, and is an important part of consciousnness. But we always have to remember and examine if we are getting lost in powerful experiences, or if we use them as a springboard to go further in our sadhana. from appearance to essence? Does the chase after the next powerful experience become a new block of our travel through the universe? So, where it was with psychedelic substances was that the world all of a sudden became more intense, and the colors could jump out, and music could become more intense and three-dimensional. Then in essence, the world shines with the freshness of creation, with an inner light. So where it was in the psychedelic substance, it was that there could come, we can experience visuals, like fractals spinning around on the white wall and the like. Then in essence, instead we experience clarity, like the air on a mountaintop on a cold morning. Instead of being overwhelmed by visuals, we instead focus in on the sublime and essential in everything and everyone. So where it in psychedelic substance was that one's sense of self could change, that it can become more porous, like melting into the environment. Then instead we become silent prayer, one with everything in the essence. So where in the psychedelic substance it was at the peak of experience, you can have outer body experiences and visit the nearest astral world. Then with an open crown, we can take all perspective, both inside and outside the body, in the unified field of consciousness in essence. Instead of visiting love-lust astral worlds, from the lowest to the intermediate or highest, we rest instead in the true heaven worlds, in unity consciousness in essence. We work through whatever paradigm we find ourselves in, and then we progress on to the next one, when local conditions are favorable. We can only sort of see the next paradigm, and it's completely impossible to see more than one paradigm ahead of us. This means that humility, when standing in front of the universe, which is much larger than we can ever imagine, is a very good quality to have in consciousness, to work on developing. It's been many years since I've last had psychedelic experiences. When I look back on the time, I can see now that it was the longing from getting from the appearance and into the essence that was running the show behind the scenes, so to speak. From the unconditional love stage, the soul is on the other side of salvation, and everything from there is just a bonus anyway. Experience is not the same as essence. Appearance is not the same as essence. Bypass the psychedelic renaissance and instead work on getting from appearance to essence. You won't miss anything essential in life by doing just that. We are all children of the divine, and the universe is our playground. And next week we will look at the last issue in our journey through life by looking at how nostalgia and the longing of getting back to the responsible-less, unconscious, childhood consciousness levels quickly can become another roadblock in a sadhana of journeying from appearance to essence. Thank you for today.